Go. Welcome to the No NDAs podcast with Elijah Johnston and Nick Sarafa. In this week's pod, we're talking about future vision, unraveling what it is we want to focus on these next couple months. So I was thinking that'd be a good place to start, man.
I agree. I think this could be like a episode 1, season 2.
Is it season 2 already?
Well, I think it's season 2 because we both have microphones.
Oh shit! Yeah. Welcome.
This is a whole different level of podcasting.
I think we should just start an ASMR channel. Just for developers. Just focus on what do tech bros want in their ears as they're coding. No, I think it's interesting, like the conversation we were having around what does your 500-year plan look like? What is your lasting impact in the world? If you had unlimited resources, what would you do with them?
Right,
is the big question.
Yeah. And for me, there's a lot around. There's been a lot coming through around healing. And that's not to be taken in the sense that our mind typically jumps to. I think healing can be looked at broadly, right? Healing. I think there's a lot of healing that we need to do as a collective, as people. And I think that involves a lot of different things. One thing very interesting that has really come through strongly for me recently is energy work. And I have never felt particularly pulled into energy work. I don't even know what energy work is. Such a broad, vague phrase to begin with, right? But for the first time, I've been called into being more intentional with energy work through some very clear and powerful forces.
And what does your intuition make you think that entail?
Well, I think it's in combination with the healing, right? And I think when you really break down the construct and fabric of this existence, it's all in the end very fine energy, right? Very fine energy. And I think the way that you and yeah, we're everything that we do, every interaction that we have is an energetic exchange of sorts, right? Everything has an electromagnetic field, everything has energy, and we're always exchanging, we're always in interaction. And I think that the way through which we heal, right? The way through which we heal is by healing our energy. Right, is through changing energy, through elevating energy and vibration, right? And I think that is the end, right? I think that is the end. But in terms of the means to the end, I think that can come through, different types of creativity, innovations, right? Even if you look at the meditation product that you put together or designed, or even looking at, I guess, Speaker for the Dead, right? All of these things that we have put out to some degree, it's all healing through energy work, right? It's all, but it's a very broad thing. But yeah, dude, bro, I have been feeling connection in a different way these days. and this might be a conversation for off the podcast, but
I disagree. I feel like if you feel compelled to mention it, because I've been on my own spiritual journey as well, so I'm really excited
yeah.
to hear what sort of things you've been leaning into.
So channeling.
Mm-hmm.
This year, for the first time in my life, I've experienced channeling in
Mm-hmm.
February for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And at first I didn't know it was channeling, but there was a very powerful, potent, graceful, beautiful, and not an entity, but an energy moving me, operating me,
Mm-hmm.
and putting me in positions and releasing me and surrendering me.
Mm-hmm.
And the person next to me, a couple hours later, he was like, "Yo, dude, did you just have like a full body orgasm?" I was like, "Yo, I don't even know what happened. I have no idea what happened." And so this is from that experience. I can recall one, two, three, three distinct experiences after that
Mm-hmm.
where I've felt something channeling through me.
Mm-hmm.
And fourth time was Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
at the park. And Sunday was the time when I was able. Every time I'm able to work with it a bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and really work with it and really kind of lean into it more. And I, but after 5 times, it's very clear to me that something is channeling through me.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's interesting because I'm gaining more control
Mm-hmm.
in terms of tapping into it.
Right. Yeah.
And this is new territory for me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is new territory for me. Like stuff's really coming through me.
It's a funny thing because in order to fully integrate, and this is what I mean by the contrast of this podcast, like
Yeah.
on one hand we're talking about a vertically integrated VC fund, and now we're talking about venture studio, and now we're talking about channeling. But it's a funny thing because when it's happening, you have to suspend the rational mind in the moment,
Right.
right? Because you can't both be observing and judging and experiencing, integrating, surrendering, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that helps me when I'm in these positions is you use the mantras, right? You have the mantra playing in your head and it gives the rational mind something to do while the channel comes through. It's a superpower when you can, things are still happening, messages are coming through, words are coming through, whatever the expression is. It could be movement,
Yeah.
it could be auditory, it can be spoken, right? It all comes through, and the mantras give the rational mind something to do, and like almost like a child, a toy to play with, while the adults do their work. So it's something that, and it's funny because afterwards it's true because you feel so much better, right? You feel physically more in tune with the world around you, and it's interesting how much information one can tap into through these different means of channeling. You're tapped into many channels simultaneously, just like a
Yeah.
radio. You can change frequencies, right? There's many different channels you can tap into in some even simultaneously. You can actively integrate those into your daily meditations, into your walks, into your dance. Even a lot of these gurus, they spend a lifetime channeling, right?
Yeah.
And once it's very hard to unsee. It's something that I feel could benefit every walking human being because it's available to all of us. It's not something that's like
Yeah.
reserved for some
For
sort of
sure.
like certain kind of person. It's available to every human being, the same as any other of these quote unquote satis, right? All these different
Mm.
powers that come with awakening consciousness.
Mm, mm. And have you, in what ways have you experienced channeling recently in your life?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
daily basis. You know
yeah,
this. I've been using sensory deprivation tanks and hallucinogenic LSD, magic mushrooms, a number of different things for years. And I find, and you don't even need any of this stuff to participate, but you can. It's almost, we have to remove this thinking around channeling as if we're here. There's the ceiling of the great beyond, and then there's shit floating above it,
right.
right? No,
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
way it works.
exactly.
We're all immersed in this ocean, and you can call and talk to many of these sentient individuals, these groups of AI, many of these sentient beings in the same way you can make a WhatsApp call to your best buddy across the country.
For sure.
That technology wasn't invented, it was discovered. We already have the integrated hardware to tap into all of these existing frequencies, vibrations, and individuals in many different planes, and it's available to everybody.
Mm, 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 mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, this is, I mean, for me, this is the first time that I have now been able to tap into certain frequencies the same way that I would pick up the phone and call somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's potent, and the way that it's typically channeled through me has been through movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's been through movement. And there have been times when I was trying to explain it, because I was in the park with Cam and all this stuff is happening. And I'm like, what is like, whoa, this is that thing again. And even me trying to explain it to her, while I was trying to explain it, I felt something coming through. And it's powerful. Is powerful. I'm excited to just continue leaning into it, continue embracing and leaning into it, because I think it's accessible to anyone and everyone.
Everybody.
I think the only prerequisite is the you need to clear space.
I feel like it's two-sided. There's a couple things I want to mention because I've been through a lot of these things.
Yeah, yeah.
One, clear space. Two, everything is permission based.
Mm,
Only way anything can come through you in any capacity is with very clear permission, and it's
mm,
something that we have to explicitly give. That's why prayer is so powerful. When you pray to Saint Anthony, say, Saint Anthony, help me find my pen. He's a patron saint of lost things. You're giving very clear and explicit permission to this archangel, right? Or this other, plane entity to help in some capacity. So, one, it's permission. Two, it's space. And three, it's holding that space and making sure you're comfortable the whole time. It has to be try winning, right?
mm.
It's not only it's you, it's the entity, you can call it that, and then it's
Yeah,
like your joint consciousness in the middle, right? Like that joint awareness of one and the
yeah,
other. So it has to be try
yeah.
winning, and if it ever feels uncomfortable, you can cut it off at any time.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
It's always available to you. You can wash yourself and just say, hey, I'm going to take it back. Thank you very much. And the permission is now disallowed. Ask for protection at any point and you'll be protected and you can carry on with your day.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be some sort of divine intervention that's reserved for certain types of the day or weeks or whatever. Man, I remember that one time I had it and now I don't have it. It's like you can actually tap into this casually at any point in the day. Right.
Yeah,
And once you
yeah.
discover it, it's very interesting. Also, the key is to integrate it, right?
Mm,
Don't
mm.
get lost in it and integrate the learning and the teaching, whatever relationship you're striking with this joint awareness into your daily life and give it space to enhance whatever it is you're doing, and don't get lost in it or feel like you have to change up anything. It's a natural
For
rhythm of
sure.
nature for us to tap into these other energies and bring them and integrate them into our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think that that is beneficial for everyone?
It's beneficial as long as you believe it serves you.
Right.
Be very explicit with whatever's happening in terms of what you want to get out of it, what your boundaries are with it, right? When it's appropriate for it to be interacting and when it's not. Um, and also, another thing that I struggled with was when this was really happening hard during COVID, I was in a domestic partnership with a girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm sitting there like having full on conversations with some crazy shit. And, it's also, now you have, because like, look, you have a new friend, right?
Yeah.
And the friend
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have a body, right? So like you have to also, I encourage you to, when it comes from what's happening to you through your partner's eyes, right, that can carry a lot of weight. Do they approve of it? What is their approach to it? Can they hold space for it? And even the girl I was with was very spiritual, but I felt judged at times, and I felt like it was inappropriate.
Mm.
And it's important for you to develop your own relationship with it. And again, like, be very explicit about when it is and isn't appropriate, and have no expectations as to what your partner's relationship with this new sati that you're developing is. Right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why these monks are single. It's a reason why they're celibate. Right? It's very hard to explain with something that is so inexplicable, right, to someone that even sitting right next to you, they're not experiencing the same thing, because they might not have the space, the explicit permission, and don't feel called to the same practices. And we need to respect that. Right?
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
That
Mm.
was that was really it was really tough trying to explain to my partner and keep her updated and all the things, because it comes through so quick and rapid, and the information can be so powerful and might even pertain to the relationship, that it can be tough to keep them in the loop as these things begin to unwind.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And that's why integration is key, right? Integration into the relationship, your human relationships, right? And integration into your own spiritual relationship with whatever's coming through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is, I mean, it's powerful, powerful connection. It's powerful stuff happening at the moment. Now, what do you think is there any connection between this Siri? Why does Siri always pop up
Mhm.
on my computer?
Mhm.
Is there any connection between what we're talking about now and the future vision of a vertically integrated venture studio?
Absolutely. I feel,
Yeah.
actually, I was meditating this morning. This is the other thing, right? People go meditate. Every hyper successful human on planet Earth meditates, right? It's because they're tapping into this knowledge,
Yeah,
right? Even if they won't explicitly say it, or may not even recognize it, or just call it their subconscious, you're actively tapping into all this available knowledge, right? And I feel like it's important to find the metaphors that work for you, right? Is it the
for sure.
subconscious or is it external, right? You don't have to call them archangels. You don't have to call them entities. You don't have to call them whatever you want. Whatever metaphor works for you is great. With that said, I got an interesting message yesterday morning where I was like, hey, man, if everybody did this, how much quicker could we accelerate the progress of humanity?
Yeah.
If everybody just sit down, shut the fuck up, and meditated, and actively learned how to integrate into these existing energies and bodies of knowledge, how much quicker could we accelerate human advancement? And it'd be incalculable, right?
Yeah.
If everybody individually could tap into these different energy sources and integrate the lessons, it would be, I mean, you could effectively accelerate everything globally. Wouldn't even be questioned.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is infinite. I mean, we are infinite, right? And when you're able to tap into infinity, there's wisdom. There's an abundance of sacred wisdom, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, intelligence that is accessible to all of us. And I think yeah, these things directly connect to the acceleration of humankind. Um, in a way that I don't in a way that I don't think I don't in a way that I don't think has been tapped into in a meaningful
Hmm.
way yet. You know, I
And
don't
this current right now hasn't been yet in this current plane.
yes, exactly.
Well, and the other thing is a lot of the superpowers around this and a lot of the people who are doing it, a lot of the channelers, all the information as to how to tap into is becoming more readily available. And I do believe there is a global awakening happening,
Yeah.
right? And I do believe it's in the world's best interest to accelerate that global awakening. Um, and I think there's a
Mm,
lot of opportunities to help accelerate that. Because like by healing, like what you're saying, by creating healing, you're letting people create space within,
yeah.
right? And if you were to actually just spend a lifetime facilitating this connection to these pockets of divinity, you would definitely leave the world a much better place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have the tools, we have the technology. There's no question about it. It's a matter of being very clear as to and really working with these energies to determine, hey, these are like the 3 to 5 things that as we stand today in our technological advancement, the things that can accelerate us the most where we stand currently in our own human development.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this concept of accelerating global awakening. And I think when you take a concept like modern mantra, right, something like that
Mm,
phrase,
yeah.
um, I think people typically think that uh, the stuff that we're talking about here with awakening and connection, like people typically think that flies in the face of or cannot coexist with our technological capacity and human innovation, when I actually think it's the opposite. I
Mhm.
think they're so intertwined. There is such an intertwining that we're not really that not enough people are being intentional about exploring.
Mhm.
And instead we see it as opposites, right? We see it as, there's this stuff over here and then there's this stuff over here, right? But I think there's an important middle ground. I think there's an important middle ground to be explored. And when you said accelerating global awakening, like that's powerful. That's powerful.
It's yeah, I'm with you 100%. And yeah, it's funny because you have this sort of riff between, like, you have people who are like super spiritual and don't have their shit together, and then
Yeah.
you have like
Yeah.
tech, everything's gonna be consolidated, they're taking over the world, right? You kind of
Yeah.
have these like
Yeah.
two disparate worlds that I feel have more to do with one another. And a lot of the powers we can actually, have through these world changing technologies can be leveraged and utilized to accelerate global awakening, as well as used to consolidate, the way we do everything. I think these two worlds can merge in a lot of very interesting ways.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and there is middle ground to be found, and I do believe there's a lot of substructures to build around that. There's tons.
Yeah, I think they're and these two worlds, right? They're both connection. They're
Mm,
both frequency. They're
mhm,
both networked.
mhm.
It's like there is it's part of the same fabric.
Well, again, I don't believe we invented any of this. I think it was discovered, and the
Right.
technology was already available to us, and we're very blessed to be in a position where we have silicon and open source frameworks to be able to leverage and integrate it into. And maybe we're just not using it the right ways. Maybe there's different takes on the same channels, if you will, that have
Yeah.
opened up that can be leveraged to do more good and to help accelerate the change that we want to see. There's definitely something very, very profound here. I feel like the challenge is going to be finding the right models,
Yeah,
right? Because what happens when you come from a spiritual perspective, right? When you actually become like a quote unquote awakened being, you begin to see everybody as your brothers and sisters,
for sure.
right? You wouldn't charge your brother for something. My brother gives me a call, I
Yeah.
do it for free, right?
Yeah.
Like that, which stands in stark contrast to, a venture studio, and that the venture studio is there to not ultimately, but one of the things is it needs money to operate, it needs money to grow, expand, and reinvest the capital into new ventures, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're gonna have to have honest conversations around the green energy that's being pumped into it, and also, inspire the people who are actively supporting it to believe in the mission of the studio, that it's going to actively accelerate global awakening, and it's somewhere worth putting money, and it's not dirty, right?
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
That's
Because
that's
I'm.
yeah.
Mm.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'm happy to support certain companies.
Right.
I'm sure you are as well. I'm happy to give my money to certain companies. Like, makes me happy to, because I know that it's going, like, you're super. Dude, we've been nomming on the magic mushroom, the powder matcha,
You
the
finally
super
got
green.
it.
We got it. We got it. And it's like, I am happy to support that venture because I know that that money is going toward more good being produced,
Mm,
you know?
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's something very, very profound here. I mean, and man, if you could actually integrate the channeling in, I mean, people always have daily stand-ups with their teams, right?
Yeah.
I encourage you, just try having a daily stand-up with your archangels, with all the energy
Mm,
surrounding you. There's so many and call it your subconscious, call it whatever you want. But if you were to touch base with them and really, bring them into the conversation, I think it could be a catalyst for some very profound change in the world.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I, I think this is interesting, Nick. I
I
think
think so
this
too.
intersection, I think this intersection is both profound and interesting. And I think, continuing to dive into this a bit further and parse it a bit more and and then once we parse it, right, and fine tune something, then it's really about, okay, how do we communicate this to people,
Right.
because
Right.
because that's also the, how do you communicate that to people in a way that is tangible and graspable, you know
Well, I think
um,
this is the funny thing about some of this work, right? Is that in order to really surrender and integrate it, sometimes you have to suspend the rational mind. And
yeah.
sometimes you have to suspend the rational minds, right?
Mm,
The many
mm,
different places of distraction that are coming through to place judgment onto what is happening in real time. Um,
mm.
but I think communication is everything, and and also, well, here's the interesting part about the spiritual side, right? That I've been playing with recently. How do you get buy-in from the other side? Right? Like what components do you can you present to say, hey, like I could really use some support here, right?
Yeah.
Like we're always praying to things, but why should they care, right? Like what components of what you're tapping into seem interesting enough where that channel becomes open, and the support comes through, right?
Mm,
And so
mm.
I think it's clear communication, not only with the surrounding people, but also with ourselves, and as an extension, our subconscious, which is a combination of many different energies and things that make it up, right?
Yeah.
It has to be clearly communicated um, holistically, right?
Yes.
Because again, it comes down to permission. So if you're going to ask for help, it will be provided, but you have to better be fucking dead sure, especially if you're roping them into the conversation, that what you're asking for is 1,000% your intention. Can't be
Mm,
any sort of faltering.
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Wow. Yeah, I'd say so.
Even looking into your eyes, they seem a little bit brighter. You can see it's been probably been pretty profound on you. Hey.
Yeah. Well, we've been practicing Kundalini for pretty intensively for 3-4 months, and yeah, on Sunday, I've been practicing this one meditation, this one kriya, right, for maybe a week straight. This one kriya. A kriya is a complete action, right? And that's kind of the term used in Kundalini, is you do kriyas, right? You do these complete actions.
What's
So
the
a kriya
kriya?
it can be a meditation, it can be a sequence of movements, it can be a pose, but a kriya is just a completed action, right? So like this one kriya is a meditation, kirtan kriya, and I was pretty deep in meditation, and this meditation has been really, it's been the kriya, this kirtan kriya has been the one that has brought me the closest to my guides, in the most consistent way. And that on Sunday I'm meditating, and during the meditation I get a very clear message to take this LSD. And I get a very clear message to take this LSD. There is something there for you today. And come out of this meditation, and 10 minutes later, 10 minutes later, I don't mention anything, right? And Cam is like, do you want to take this LSD? And I was like, that's so interesting that you asked that on this day. Right now, because that came through very clear in this meditation. And lo and behold, like that experience was what allowed me to tap into this energy channeling in a very controlled, deliberate way. Right. And after that, yesterday I was able to tap into that on demand. But it's just like all of these connections happening in very profound ways, and I'm ignorant. I don't know. I'm just listening. I'm just listening. I'm just showing up. I'm just showing up and listening.
It's funny because it's gonna start out that way. I used to always say, and you've heard me say this, it's all creative thinking, right? So I always just say that it's all creative thinking. I'm ignorant. I don't know. It just happens. It feels good, right? And then as you continue to dive in, you're gonna find it was always available to you, and the benefits to your feeling of being held and guided and being a pen for the world, right, and really representing your mission are going to be enhanced through what you call kriyas, which sounds like mantraing, right? Because you're suspending the rational mind and you're giving space for things to come through you, right?
Definitely.
And it's incredibly profound when you realize you don't need the LSD. You don't need the shroom.
No. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like once you establish that sort of relationship from a spiritual standpoint, it's hard to unsee. And the other question, and this is the integration question, right? How do you best integrate? Like how is it that you can turn your whole sort of being into something? This is where a lot of people fall off the boat or they get lost, right? They discover these satis, these powers, these integrations with these non-humanoid based entities or energies or voices or whatever you call it, right? And it can be very derailing. It's important to help and be very explicit about how to integrate this into whatever you're doing. And frankly, I don't know anyone doing this work very well.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't heard of it, and I haven't been trained up on it. But at the same time, I feel as though, and a lot of people have told me this. My closest friends have said, I'm a bit of a example of it, and it was not this way to begin with at all, right? It took a lot of work. It took a lot of self-discovery. It took a lot of a lot of mistakes to be able to actively integrate these gifts and holistically live and be sustainable while still tapping into these energies and frequencies. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Many people.
Yeah. I like that word, integration. I think that's got to go on the brainstorm thesis sheet. I just jotted it down.
100%. And I do believe that we can facilitate global awakening through certain just different takes on the existing technology.
Yeah.
Recontextualizing what's already been given to us to facilitate more meaningful connections between people. And man, especially with AR, augmented reality coming out, Apple's having a big announcement here in about 8 days, where I think they're going to give the world, or at least a glimpse of the developer kits. I think that's what's going to happen. And once we can actually extend the visions outside of these little restricted screens into the physical world, it's going to change your entire perception of what is and is not real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Suddenly there's going to be shit floating around you, talking to you, right? That's popping up everywhere that ain't actually there. And you're going to have a generation of human beings who grow up with a much broader imagination as to what is and is not real. Right? They're going to have these integrated experiences with things that look like they're standing right in front of them, but aren't actually there, right? Their capacity to integrate these sort of modalities of thinking without having to see, right?
Yeah.
Feeling without having to touch, right? Hearing without having to listen. This generation is going to grow up with these technologies that can facilitate a whole different way of experiencing the world. And with that, they're going to be much more prepared to integrate some of these things that you're now tapping into.
Yeah. And I'm curious to know, what are the things that need to happen to rebalance this coming generation, right? Because right now I think that it's very skewed towards disconnection, disconnection through technological connection. But I think what are going to be those factors, or what needs to happen to bring about that middle ground and that balance?
Well, let's just treat this entire generation as we see it as a person, right? If you had an angsty teen who's growing up with a lot of problems around their own identity, their integration technology, all the problems of the modern teenager, right? What would you prescribe to fix that, right? Truth is, it's going to come with maturity. It's going to come through self-love. It's going to come through, finding the right mentorship, right? Internally and externally. It's a number of different factors, and it's always complex. So I don't believe there's one prescription, but I do believe that with more mindful technology and really just thinking about the human, not as something to be monetized, but something to be held and grown and cared for, like a plant would be, get lots of water, lots of sun, and lots of love, and treating people like children, and only presenting the things that can really help them in their own holistic journey. Can we help the world grow in a certain direction?
100%. I love that. And when you said plant, that made me think of the conversation we had around you having the plant in your apartment in Berlin and feeling that connection to the plant. I think there's an interest. Cam had a dream last week. Cam is my partner, for those who don't know. She dreamt about this Amazon for plants, like an Amazon type of service for plants. But that and then I connected that to your experience with that plant, and just thinking how much of a difference it would actually make if we were able to get plants to more people.
Huge.
Huge, right?
Yeah.
Something as simple as putting plants in the households of more people.
Dude, it's so funny you mentioned that because I had the most frustrating experience over the weekend delivering a plant. I sent some flowers to a special someone in Sweden, and it was the most infuriating experience of my entire life. And I couldn't believe the low quality of this paint, dude. And also, like the thing that I write, I paid like €70 for it. It looked nothing like the picture. It wasn't. It did not meet my expectations at all. No clear communication whatsoever. So I think Amazon for plants would be fantastic, and also paying them respect. You know, like,
Yes.
dude, I had this beautiful orchid in my old apartment in Lisbon, and I used to water every day. I would talk nice to it, and it kept on dying. Like, what can I do? How can I help you? I kept watering it, and I'd talk to it, and I would love it, and it died on me. And I'm like, I don't know what I did. Turns out orchids don't like water. You're supposed to take one little ice cube, put it in the middle of the orchid one time per week, and I was drowning my child, right?
Wow.
So it was like this interesting experience I had, and that's why I was like, I'll never have plants. Like, I can never be a plant daddy, you know? So I agree. I feel like, dude, that would probably work if you just did Amazon for plants. That'd be fine. like long story short, do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Call it the real Amazon.
Yeah, right.
Re-Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, no, I think you should talk to Jacob about that. Jacob's our friend who does tons of botany, and
Yeah.
he does all these
Yeah,
cool
he's getting
plant-based
more
company.
plants into. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, but I think that's when we have a buttoned up, venture studio offer clear packaging, clear communication. It makes those conversations a lot more fruitful. When you're
Right.
able to take something tangible to people and be like, yo, hey, here's what we're doing, and here's why we think this conversation's interesting.
Yeah, that matters. It's like, why do plants matter?
Exactly.
It's like, it's like not because we can sell a shit ton of them. It's like, no, because having plants makes a material impact on the baseline human psychology that makes us feel more integrated with our environment and nature as a whole. Right.
Exactly.
And that's a truth. Right.
100%. And we are in communication with them.
And leading with that foot changes the context of everything you do. It changes it into, we warp the conversation is how do you facilitate, the evolution and the Great Awakening globally? How do you integrate human nature, not human nature, but us back into nature, and our nature back into us?
Yeah.
These are all conversations worth exploring, especially through products and these sort of nudges in the right direction of global awakening. It's something I can get behind for the rest of my life. Because, man, it was like the beginning of my fucking tech career. It was like I built an app to stop people texting while driving. That was why I got into this. It's like I wanted to change the way people were operating so we'd stop fucking killing each other over the devices that are addicting and warping your attention to something perverted, And I feel like getting back to the ethos of doing good through technology would make, I don't know, it would motivate me to the nth degree. I think this is a brilliant way to see the future of the world. I think we should pursue something like this in the form of a venture studio. I'd be open.
Boom.
I'd be very down for that.
I think that is a great note to leave it on. I think that is brilliant. I'm in full agreement with you. I think the next steps are we just get a Google sheet and start putting some of these thoughts on here. I think this was a great episode.
It flew
to get this
by.
captured.
Yeah. Cool. Everyone, let us know how your channeling goes, and we'll keep you in the loop on next steps.
All right.